Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, I'll be reviewing the replica F1 wheel used in the 1986 Lotus 98T that was driven by the legendary Ayrton Senna. We will also be looking at the paddle shifter add-on that is available for this wheel. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Now for a closer look at the Mod 98T vintage formula wheel. Now, this is supposed to be an exact replica as far as dimensions and everything of the actual wheel that Senna used in the 86 Lotus 98T Formula 1 car. So if that's true, I have to say this is a little wheel they had in those cars. And I don't know if it's because the cockpits were so tight and you just didn't have any room for turning your hands, or if I've been told that a smaller wheel will actually give you a better sense of when a car is starting to enter an oversteer condition and allow you to correct it quicker. Of course, that depends on the steering ratio and other things too, but yeah, that's what I've heard about this. But this is small. It's 260 millimeters in diameter across from here to here, and I measured that just to make sure, even though the website actually states that. So I was going, wow, that is a tiny wheel. And it has an aluminum spoke in the middle here, and that runs at about, let's see what that is. I think that was a 3 mil or something like that when I checked it out earlier. But we'll go ahead and put it on the video. Yeah, there we go, 2.9 something. So, yeah, we'll call that 3 mil. And it is attached, they have some urethane molds inside of here that are attaching to these spokes on the aluminum. And it's a very hard urethane. If you squeeze it this way, it's very hard, almost like a brick. There's no give at all in it. And it feels a little flattish right in here, almost like a channel. But if you squeeze it this way, it's very soft. It's got this squeezy feel to it when you're squeezing it that way. So, in fact, I don't know if you guys can see that well, but you can see there's a little indentation here in the middle. Oh, well, that's going to show up. But it's very flattish there, almost like I said, like a channel, probably from the grinding of the urethane seams or something. But yeah, you really don't notice that when you're holding it. And it does have a comfortable grip, I think. The actual diameter of this grip, and I'm going to show you a shot of it here, is 100 millimeters. So that might be too big for some, too small for others, and just right for me. Yeah, it feels pretty good to me. Overall, the feel of it feels very stiff and hard, yet it has that softness to it. And this covering is something unique. I've never seen this before in the SRG. It feels almost like it's tacky, but of course when you pull your hand away, there's no tackiness to your hand. And I'm not sure what they're calling it an eco leather. If you go to their website and look at it, they say this is some kind of eco leather. And it's hand stitched onto the wheel. So the stitching, give you a shot of it there, is actually pretty well done, I think. I don't see any real defects as far as threads hanging out anywhere or missed pieces or something coming apart. So, of course, we'll have to use it in anger for a little while and see if it does come apart. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Yeah, and this wheel come in, by the way, for the price point of this is €200 or 199 plus shipping. But this is the Pro wheel, which has the electronics, as you noticed. You probably saw the USB cable. And we have a couple of knitters right here. And yeah, that's called the Pro. Now the light is just the wheel, and that's 189 euros shipped. So for another 10 euro, you get a couple of knitters. You get obviously the USB conversion board that is in here, and a rather nice feeling shielded USB cable. No ferrite cores on it, but yeah, it's a pretty tough feeling cord here. And we'll do the look inside on this stuff when we get to that portion. Right. What else are we going to talk about? It feels like a heavy little wheel. Only at 260 millimeters, it's got some heft to it. I'm going to show you some shots of it. It's 2 pounds, 5.5 ounces. And for everybody else in the world, that would be 1,070 grams, or just over a kilo. So, yeah, pretty substantial for such a little wheel. And it feels pretty stiff when you're just holding it and twisting it like this. But if I put it on the table and kind of the bench and kind of push it this way, I can get some flex out of it. So, yeah. If I put a lot of weight on it, which is not surprising because this is urethane molding in that's grabbing hold of this aluminum in the center here. I'm not sure how that's going to hash out as far as driving. Probably doesn't make any difference because it feels very strong in the radial, the turning part. And yeah, even if I'm pushing on it, but again, we're going to have to wait and see. But this the rubbery piece in here that feels soft. So they've got that hard urethane, and they got this nice soft rubber in here on top, on the back and the front. So that gives it a really nice grip there. I was surprised that I would like it. I thought it was just going to be very hard urethane all the way around. So I'm glad they put the rubber in here. Now, they have told me that they're actually changing the urethane in here to reduce some of the weight. They said they were going to be mixing a urethane with some kind of a PLA mixture or something like that. They have their own custom molds for injection, and that's supposed to make this a little bit lighter if you care. Now, if you're running this, going to put this on a Logitech, a G27, G29, something like that, or you're going to put it on one of the lower Thrustmasters, then weight might be an issue for you for sure. That's something you want to consider when you're looking at a wheel. All right, what else can we talk about here? Let's see. Went over the weight. I guess that's about it. There's not a whole lot else going on here as far as, what the wheel. It just feels like a pretty good wheel. I don't really have any complaints or see any defects. Well, there's a scratch right there. But, that's typical of stuff that I get sent to me from other people when it comes to SRG. Now, yeah, this electronics is just going to be a board in here, I think. So, again, we'll take a look at that when we get to it. Now, a couple other things. Oh, by the way, this is a Lotus wheel, remember? So they do give you this. This is one of those clear-coated, or has that clear, deep look to it as far as insignia, and we're going to be putting this on the wheel. I'm sure for copyright purposes, they can't do that at the shop or the factory and send it to you that way, but they do send you a sticker in case you want to stick yours on there, and I'm going to stick mine on there because they can't do anything about it now that I have it in my possession, right? And they also have a hub that's available. Now, this hub is aluminum plate here, as you can see the aluminum there. It has some nuts in there in these holes, and you can see it's cut out for those nuts. Very nicely done. And on the back we have the flatheads that are obviously going to be going into the wheel, so they'll fit flush like that. And we got a pretty thick 3D printed part on the back here, acting as a spacer if you want to take this from the stock 50.8 millimeter PCD to the 70 millimeter rather PCD. I'm going to leave this alone. I'm not going to use this spacer because I really don't need it. I have a quick release that is actually a 50.8, as you can see there. So I'm just going to stick this on the back, and yeah, I'll be good to go. It's going to be kind of upside down, but I just have to recalibrate the wheel in the right position. I'll be good to go. So yeah, you can get this, and this is, like I said, it's an additional 29 euros if you want to get that. So yeah, it's up to you if you need the 70 millimeter PCD or not. Right. What else can we talk about? Now, they also sent me this little package, and you can order this when you order the wheel. And it's a shifter. Oh, in case you don't want to do your regular shifting with an H pattern shifter like they had in that car, I believe, then yeah, you can just put this on the wheel and use the paddles. Now, this is actually a pretty nice little unit as far as a shifter unit goes, and of course it's going to bolt right on, just like take the place of this guy, right? So that's just going to bolt on and take the place, and you also get another USB cord for it, and it's probably going to be the same kind of USB conversion board that's in here, because yeah, now we're adding two more moves with the shifters, one here, and we have there, so a total of 4. I'm sure there's probably a Teensy board or something in here that we can, like I said, we'll see that when we get there. Now, this is actually made, it looks like to me, and I'll find out once I actually look in there, but it looks like to me that this aluminum piece here, the backer part that the shifters are actually attached to, run or spanned all the way through this 3D printed part. And then, of course, that would be a logical assumption, because yeah, I got some screws here, see those? And then I've got 2 more on the other side, so I'm assuming they're bolting this into the 3D part. And we can see the wires there for the switches. Aluminum on all sides, except when we come out here, the lever itself is a 3D printed part. All right. And you can see the magnets actually embedded here, and over there. So when you shift and you lift up on it, it doesn't feel like I'm pulling away from another magnet. It feels more like I'm just pulling away from some steel plate or something. But it's not very loud, as you can tell. So yeah, that's something to consider anytime you get a paddle shifter, of how loud it is. But yeah, this way you can put this on here, and then your wheel, you can have paddle shifters and use the wheel for any car you want to use it for. So yeah, let's talk about the paddles themselves. Carbon fiber units. All right, very nicely done. Nice cuts in them. And these paddles, I believe, are 3, maybe 3 mil or so. That's what they look like. What we got? A little over 3. Okay. So yeah, that's about, again, I always say this when I'm looking at paddles, on carbon fiber paddles on paddles, shifters, that yeah, I think the minimum anyone should have is 3 mil on these, especially when you're starting to cut holes out like that, right? That GT look. But yeah, it feels pretty good. And of course, this is going to feel a little different once we have it bolted to the wheel, and we get to keep our knitters. How about that? Now, one thing I noticed about the knitters here and on the wheel itself is one is a plastic button on it. And these are good little feeling little knitters. Let's see if we can actually show you guys. Can I focus that? There we go. So that's the information on the knitter buttons. But you can see this is a red plastic type of cap on this one. This green one over here, actually, I thought they would just be a regular green plastic one. But as you can see, if I can get this to focus and get you guys, the light's a little bright here. Anyway, you can see on the top, there it is. You can see the top. This is actually a 3D printed part here. If I turn it on the side, you can see the lines in it. Now, again, I don't know how well that's showing up, but hopefully you can see them. So yeah, this is actually a 3D printed button cover. And also, that made me go back, when I saw that, it made me go back to this wheel. And it's the same thing going on here. In fact, let me just pull it off. Ha! Hope we didn't break it. And maybe we can get a little better look at it if I pull it off. I don't know. The lights are so bright. There we go. You can see a little pattern there. And there's actually, you can see little lines in it. There you go. See some lines. It looks like they're using some hot glue to secure them. I don't know how necessary that is, but yeah. I'll put this back on and I'll hot glue it later. But then again, I'll be taking these switches out when we switch over to this, right? The shifter. Because I'm going to go ahead and put this on the wheel, even though I'm going to be using an H pattern shifter and doing some heel and toe, trying to show some respect for that era of car. Because, yeah, I believe that's what they used back in those days. I had to go look it up to make sure. But, yeah, I think 86, they were probably still doing some of that, the little H pattern shifter on the side of the car down there in the well. All right. Anything else we want to cover? I think that's it. So what we'll do next is get to the look inside, and we'll just take a peek in this. I might as well just do the shifter, because I'm sure it's going to be the same thing as it is here as far as the configuration, but with more because of the shifters. We'll take a peek inside and see what makes this system tick. Now for our inside look segment. Now, I've already taken the 3 Phillips screws loose and off, so I can take this little cap off for you guys. And there are 3 of these in there. Go ahead and take them out before I lose them. Just little Phillips head units, and they've got the aggressive teeth in them for cutting into that PLA or PETG material so they can secure things. And near it is the plate itself. It's actually got a number on the back. Nice and smooth on the back. They must be using a glass plate or something, or metal. A very flat, shiny piece there. And there's a number to keep things straight back at the factory, I'm sure. Little indentation there. Not sure what that's for, just a styling kind of cue, I guess. And yeah, then we've got the 3-hole pattern there for our screws that make up how we attach it to the wheel, the 50.8 millimeter PCD. Right, so we'll put that aside. There is a piece of foam in here. Imagine that's covering the electronics. So that's how it'll come out if you ever have one of these and you got to replace the board. Very gently take that foam out. There we go. And there we have it. And this is see if I can get it's a STM32 board. You guys probably aren't going to be able to read that very well. If I can, where'd my pointer go? There it is. It's right in here between this wire. So anyway, there it is. STM32, also known as a teensy board. And you can see there's not that many wires in here, obviously, because of the way the shifters are working. And I'm going to actually give you a shot of what these boards look like when you buy them before you program them and wire them up. So there you have that. And I was wrong. When we were talking about in the closer look segment, I was assuming that this plate went all the way through this little piece here, this hub. But no, they're actually individually, as you can see, attached right here. And they have these little cutouts here for them. And now that I have it off, I'm trying to find, it looks like there is a magnet in between these. I don't know how well you guys, maybe this one you can see a little better. But there's actually, see when I lift this up, There you go. So there must be another little magnet in there. Just doesn't have a lot of grip, or maybe I just have too much leverage because of how far this paddle is from that actual pivot point there. All right, so yeah, that's how that's working. And you can see the switch. It's USB wire from grabbing me. See the switch right there? There you go. It's one of those lever switches. And yeah, we just press down and you can actually hear it right there. All right, so not very loud. And again, that can be a great thing if you don't want to disturb someone else that you are close to when you're racing. Anything else we want to see here? The USB, this has a USB mini plug in it down there on this teensy board. And of course, you can see that the plug is actually going through there. Now, they've actually got a cable kind of management thing going here. And if you'll see, it's kind of cool the way they did this. They actually put this, you can see the screw, this middle screw here on this plate. Of course, these two screws here will remove the plate, but this screw has gone down far enough, and I'm sure they had to measure the length to get that exact, to where it's just getting into the vinyl or urethane part of this plug. And that keeps it obviously from coming back out. And also makes it easy if we need to replace something in here, just take these 3 screws out and then it'll unplug and off you go. Or if you have a problem with your USB cord somewhere down the road, easy enough to replace. So yeah, I like that part of this setup. And I always say that when I'm looking at electronics, how hard is it going to be for me to go in here and fix something if I break it? As long as I can get another part for it, right? So yeah, I don't think there's much else to see here. This is going to be a very short look inside segment. So what I'm going to do next is put it back together, obviously. And then I'm going to go ahead and mount it on to the wheel itself. And yeah, we'll see how all that looks when we come back. All right. Now we have everything put back together and working quite well. These shifters are working well. They're actually not that loud as I assumed they would be, especially when we have them hard mounted now to our rim. They feel pretty good. One thing about this, there is no adjustable slot in here as far as moving these in and out, so you kind of get what you get here. There are some spacers in there, so if you needed to change that, you could. But yeah, feeling pretty good. We have our HRS quick release, the 50.8 millimeter PCD one on here. And yeah, that means that I did not have to use this spacer. But I did end up using the screws that were in it, or adapter rather. This is not a spacer. Well, it's kind of a spacer and adapter. Anyway, I had to use the longer screws that were in this because of the reach. And of course, they are sticking out a little bit, but yeah, no big worries there. As long as I got the job done, everything's nice and tight. Shifter's feeling good. I did the little cable management on our wires there. Just kind of tucked them in behind the shifter lever because you can see how these move. You don't want them getting into the wire. So I just kind of tucked them in and then tucked them in up here so they're not sticking way up. So when I'm driving, all I see is this. And of course, we have our Lotus button on. Looking pretty snazzy there. Ooh, yeah. All right. So yep, everything went back together. Everything's working well now. And all we have to do is go over and mount it to the, I think I'm going to be using the Bodner SS2 system on this. And yeah, just get in here and see how it looks after we get it mounted. So now we have the wheel mounted. And yeah, we're going to use this on the Kollmorgen 54G on our SS2 Bodner system. And these screws are actually, if you can look in there, are just clearing the hub. I thought I might have to get some shorter screws, but yeah, it worked out good enough for testing anyway. And yeah, looks pretty good sitting in here in the rig, I think. And we'll go around to the other side here. Get an overhead, and that's what I'll be looking at from the cockpit. Boy, it's a small wheel, but you know what? I kind of like it. It's a little departure from the 320 wheel I usually use in a round wheel, and I'm actually kind of liking it. I've already been in the cockpit, obviously testing, fitting, and the distance and everything looks pretty good. So only one thing left to do, and that is to get into the cockpit, do a little heel and toe like they did back in the day, and yeah, see how this wheel feels. So here we are in iRacing in the Lotus 79 at Sebring. Right, so this is a proper track to put this car to the test. And I did some research actually, and it turns out that this is the same kind of wheel that was in the 79 that was also in the 88. It seems through those years that all the wheels were small like this, 260, 250 diameter and round. And of course the reason is, well, there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is the cockpits were very narrow and you needed a very small wheel so that the driver could actually turn the wheel. And the second is it lends itself well to correcting oversteer. That snap oversteer, you really feel it coming quicker, it seems to me, than when I'm usually in my 300 millimeter wheels or even larger. It allows you to react a little bit quicker, and I'll show an example of that later on during our little discussion here. And yeah, so this is the same kind of wheel. And again, it brings me back to where the old days when I was using a wheel like this a long time ago in one of my cockpits, and I went to the bigger ones for more leverage. But I forgot how quick and active and alive the smaller diameter wheel actually feels when you have it in hand. Now the grips on this wheel, again, polyurethane on the sides, on the fronts and the backs it has some kind of a rubber in it, some kind of a foam rubber, very dense, and of course it's covered with that eco leather. At least that's what 3D Wrap rather is calling it. And yeah, it feels good in the hand with the gloves, very sticky, never have a problem with the grip. It has about the same grip, I think, as my suede wheels. But obviously I don't have to keep it up like I would do the suede wheel, I don't think. As far as using it so far, it hasn't worn that much. But yeah, a good grip, and you can see where I'm gripping this wheel is actually a higher grip than I think I would use if I was using like an F1 style wheel with the same kind of diameter rather, like 270 or 260 or something like that. And it was actually very comfortable, even though getting beat up by this car in the steering. As you can see, I've got my Cole Morgan turned up pretty high here to really push it hard, to see if if I can break it or make it, some kind of defect show itself, but I couldn't. It did a very good job. So yeah, had a blast with it, as you might imagine, heel toe shift in the 79. And a wheel like this just brings the realism a little bit closer. Now also, just for fun, decided to put it over here because I have the paddle shifters on the Ferrari 488 GT3 that you see here. And yeah, it worked great here too, which is a big surprise to me. I thought, this is going to be way too small, it's going to feel just wrong, and I found that it really didn't. I mean, it felt pretty natural using it, and it probably has something to do with the grip size. Kind of fit my hand, the palm of my hand, pretty well here, and that just made it feel very good. And having a quicker reaction instead of like a 300 that I usually use, I noticed it was quicker to react when I turned the wheel. So yeah, not a problem in the Ferrari 488. And of course, I'm using the shifter add-on that you can get with this wheel to see how it does. And yeah, never had a problem with the shifts here. You can see I'm coming up to a lot of downshifts up here, and yeah, just tap, tap, tap. And not a lot of pressure releasing the magnet. So I would like a little bit more pressure on the magnet when I pull it, but the sound effect of that is very quiet compared to all the other magnetic shifters I have, it seems. So yeah, if you need a quiet paddle shifter, then yeah, this is pretty quiet. I don't think it would really disturb anyone if you were using it and they were trying to study or get some sleep or watch TV or something like that. I think you could get away with it on these shifters. They really were pretty quiet. And yeah, overall, I've used this for a while, never had a miss shift. So that means we've got some good switches in there, at least in this wheel we do. And yeah, I just don't have, it didn't give me any drama. And a good example of this oversteer correction is you'll see me coming through right here. I'm going to do a clip of me going through 17. And watch this recovery from the oversteers that I get into. It's just a natural feel to get it back. And you can see how my hand's just kind of moving with the wheel as the front wheels are jumping across those bumps. And again, being a small diameter wheel like this makes it a little quicker, it feels like, than if I was on my 300 millimeter diameter wheels. So yeah, it just worked, and this goes back to the thing that I say a lot to people when they ask me, what kind of wheel do I need for this car? And really, it doesn't matter. It matters for aesthetics and for immersion and for authenticity rather. I can say that word. And yeah, but other than that, you could probably take this round wheel, this little wheel here, and use it for just about any car you want to, from Formula up to, I wouldn't want to use it on a NASCAR race car though, because you got to turn so much. You probably wouldn't be able to use it for that. You need a bigger wheel for some things. But yeah, for most cars that you drive in the GT class and stuff, this would actually work because it's working for me. It didn't hurt my lap times. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, I guess we'll just go ahead and end this segment and get on to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Lotus 98T F1 wheel from the guys at 3D Wrap. This wheel is one of two that are being offered by 3D Wrap from their vintage line, where they build their own replicas of F1 wheels used in not only the 98T F1 Lotus car, but also the MP4 F1 wheel that was in the 1988 McLaren car, both driven by the legendary Ayrton Senna. I did some research and found that the 98T wheel did look just like the one that was in the real car, as did the MP4 wheel. Now, the 98T I reviewed here is rather small, coming in at 260 millimeters in diameter, with the grip's diameter measuring in at 100 millimeters. But it is supposed to be the same size as the real one is. The grip does feel good to me, made from polyurethane and a cushy rubber material covered by what 3D Wrap is calling eco leather. This wheel is hand-stitched and is not perfect when it comes to the stitching spacing as you follow the seam around the wheel, but I could find no defects as far as loose threads and things like that. This is a rather hefty wheel for its size, coming in at just over 1 kilo, something to consider when you're buying it. When I asked the guys at 3D Wrap about it, they told me that a lighter solution is on the way via a new formula for the polyurethane mix that forms the rim. The knitter buttons on the wheel and the paddle shifter add-on unit work well with really no dramas. The paddle shifters also did a good job with no missed shifts. They're also rather quiet, which I think is a plus for those who need that kind of thing. When driving the wheel, I started to remember how fast the steering is when using one this small. It also lends itself well to catching oversteer events quite quickly. I did actually enjoy using this wheel when I was driving the 79 Lotus and the Ferrari 488, which kind of surprised me. There was a good reason the F1 cars of the day were using this small of a round wheel. Overall, I came away with a positive feeling about this wheel. Now, it is minimalistic when it comes to the available button functions, but I guess Senna didn't need a lot of buttons to go fast back in the day. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.